the next step in your anxiety disorder recovery. You've acknowledged that you now believe that recovery is possible and that you might have to remind yourself of it on a daily basis, maybe even hourly. The next step is glimmers. Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. Triggers are when you experience an unpleasant response to a memory or an event. Okay, so you physically feel horrible. You might feel anxious or panicky about it. You might be because you're worried it might happen again. Okay, so that's a very basic version of a trigger. Sorry if it's not your understanding. But then we have the opposite. We have glimmers. Glimmers are when you have a pleasant emotional response to something. So it could be that you remember that feeling of new bedding, nice clean bed sheets. It could be the smell of a new car. It could be, oh my goodness, it could be the feel of the sun on your skin. It could be going on holiday and just abandoning all of technology and just, enjoying the sun on your face, or even if you haven't got sunshine, just that fresh air, whether it's the rain on your skin or the wind. Glimmers are those feelings that feed your soul. Triggers are the ones that drain it. So there we are. Look at me getting all philosophical and all that shenanigans or whatever. Anyway, so it was glimmers that were my next step. Basically, I had seen a butterfly land on my balcony while I was engaging in one of the many so-called positive habits. So I was trying to exercise and listen to a self-help book at the same time. I was doing all the other things I was meant to do and taking the meds and seeing a therapist, and yet still I was stuck in shit city. Okay? Excuse my language. But I saw a butterfly, and just for a moment I forgot how shit I felt. Just for a moment. And then I remembered. However, that moment, that glimmer, was a reminder of what feeling good felt like. It had been such a long time. It had been months where I'd been stuck, borderline crisis. Months and months, And it had been building up over the years before that as well. So it'd been a very long time since I'd actually felt that sort of freedom of a nice feeling. And so I decided to write it down. I didn't know they were called glimmers back then, because this was about 10 or 12 years ago. I started to write it down. I also started to started to gauge my mood out of 10 every day. So 0 being horrendous and 10 being really good day. Yeah, like the best. And I was sitting sort of 1 and 2s at this time. So I decided I would also start writing that in my diary. Rather than journaling about how bad I felt constantly day in and day out, I was going to start only writing down the things that had brought me joy that day. It wasn't always something as wonderful as a butterfly. Sometimes it was just less traffic on the roads, a parking space, somebody actually answering an email or a phone call, or not being bombarded with things, or my daughter being happy with the dinner I cooked her that night. It could have been, it could be anything, but I started to write them down. And I did that practice for many, many years. Because gratitude was not having that, not having the shoulds, not being made to feel that I should feel guilty, should feel grateful for everything when I'm just struggling to find a reason to breathe every day. If I had the choice, I would stop breathing. If it was as simple as flipping a switch, I'd had enough. Okay, so I created this new habit, and that actually led to me designing my own book. Right now, this is going to get salesy, okay, but minimum, because it gives me the ick doing sales, but it might help you to get started on this new habit of becoming a glimmer detective, or even just a glimmer recognizer, if there is such a word. There's probably something better than that. So I created this book, Mood Manager, Your Yearly Joy Diary, and I've got it in paperback for $5.99 on Amazon, or for £8 plus Piers digital packaging. You can have this spiral bound one directly from me, but you need to contact me for this one. Okay, and basically, let me see if I can find a page. I'll show you. So you've got your standard page. You don't have a date. So it doesn't matter, because when we're creating new habits, we're often very intense for the first couple of weeks, and then we forget all about it because life happens. And then if you're like me, and then you don't use your diary for a little while, I then think, well, then I've ruined it. I'm not using it anymore. A bit pathetic, really, but so there's no date. So if you did it on the Monday and then you forgot for several days, it doesn't matter, because you can just come in on the appropriate day. I think it's no, I'm not very good at this bit, but I think it's a week over 4 pages. So you have your day. You have up here, look, you can tell I don't do this very often. That's where you can gauge your mood out of 10. It's a really handy thing if you're wanting to talk to your doctor and demonstrate how your moods fluctuate. It can give you some insight as to whether it's cyclical, whether it's to do with your monthly cycle, whether it's to do with seasons, so time of year. And it also, if you're having a couple of bad days, it becomes a reference book where you can look back and go, it feels like it's been a really shit week. Actually, 2 days ago, I wasn't feeling too bad. So it can reinforce that you have been feeling better, okay? And then it says at the end of each week, it says, what is the most surprising or memorable reason to smile? You don't have to fill it out, What's this week's highest mood rating? So again, it's all about celebrating those glimmers. It's about finding them, recognising them. I mean, you don't have to go out hunting for them. They're just there. It's just that anxiety has taught you not to see them. It said, we're too busy looking for all the dangers everywhere, so glimmers don't matter. But they do, because they counteract the triggers. So yeah, so I created this book hopefully to make things easier for people like yourselves, to develop a habit of looking for happiness. Oh, that could be a tagline, couldn't it? But anyway, hopefully, you understand that the next step basically is the glimmers. The next step is you've already made that huge step of learning to believe that recovery is possible. Massive step, okay? And then the next step is that you're going to start actively looking for these glimmers and recording them. Because this becomes, this diary, I mean, I do still have my old diaries that gave me the idea for this, but this becomes your feel-good reference book. It becomes evidence that there is good in your life, even because the thing is, we tend to see things, we take the good things for granted. We take green lights for granted. We take parking spaces for granted. We take the fact that the shops have what we want for granted. Not because we're selfish, but because it's familiarity. We're just used to having it. And so what this can do is this can help us to relearn that there are things to be happy about. There are things that can make us feel good, that are healthy. There are things that happen to us that aren't bad, that aren't there to make our lives worse. So, next step, get glimmer hunting.